Welcome everyone to the first episode of what I'm going to be calling Rental Regrets. As usual, I am your host, Victory Nub. The purpose of this series is twofold. One, there are going to be plenty of gaps in my video game collection of games that I actually owned growing up as a kid that I would feel saddened if we didn't actually get to take a look at them. This would probably be one of the ones that I would have died if I hadn't been able to make a video for at some point during this series. Also, it gives me a chance to do some videos that are a little more stripped down than the usual Nubs Collection episodes, which are very heavy in editing, not only just cleaning up the intros and outros, adding text jokes, cutting weird bits and sticking them into the videos. These are going to be a little more laid back, just looking at the game, kind of like, the early days of Nubs Collection when I was still trying to figure out how Adobe Premiere worked. But also, this series will serve as kind of a buffer for weeks when maybe I have a little bit of a busier schedule and I just need to pad out some time between standard episodes of Nubs Collection. So hopefully, if you have issues with the way that the normal series works out, maybe you don't like all the goofy stuff that I put up on the screen while the video game is actually being played, this will be more to your tastes. But let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be, again, stripped down, so I won't do all the story setup. I won't do the review phase. You're seeing basically all the story you need to on the screen right now. Planet X appeared out in the solar system in the year 20XX, and King Ghidorah shows up and attacks Earth, and Godzilla has to save the day. So, in case I hadn't said, we are playing Godzilla, Monster of Monsters, which was released in 1989, I believe. And the only thing I will note, because I think it is fascinating, I didn't know about this before we started the video today. This game was developed by a company called Compile. Now, if you are someone who has a great memory, you'll probably go, hey, I remember that developer. More than likely, none of you remember it, but I do, because this was the same developer who created the game that we did for our second long play on the channel, Golvellius. And you'll note that some of the music has some of the same atmospheric and in some cases majestic qualities, or certain hallmarks that I certainly noticed when I was just testing the cartridge out. Yes, we are playing a game that I said I never owned, which is kind of confusing. This is not an emulator. I actually bought a copy of the cart just to look at it today. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is a pretty unique game even for the NES era, because it plays an awful lot like a strategy RPG. You have a grid. You move your characters around on the grid. You have to walk through environments based on whatever object is showing up on that grid space. And you fight, spaceships and objects, bat away missiles and stuff. But also, at the other end of the grid are enemy combatants that will come after you. And your objective, obviously, is to beat them, but then you want to move to their home base, and you use that to teleport to the next planet. In the first one here, we are starting on Earth. I will move Godzilla first, because it's his series. I will say I don't love the way that moving around on the grid works, because it is all laid out in hex pattern, and the NES controller is not the best in the world when it comes to doing diagonals. So the early stages are pretty laid back, just a couple of things to hit. Not a ton of threats for you to worry about. I would say that the later you get in the game, the more stuff you start seeing on screen, and the harder it is to dodge, because, of course, you're a giant monster, and they just pile so much stuff on the screen that it becomes impossible to dodge everything that's going to hit you. The good news is, of course, even though it's a Godzilla game, you are given a second player, so I would assume if you were the kind of person who wants to have a friend tag along and beat up monsters, you can just hand the controller over whenever it's their turn, and they can pick the other one. I would say of the two of them, the more fun to play is obviously Godzilla. Mothra has certain unique abilities that suit her, think Mothra is female. She can fly, obviously, which is nice, so you can dodge over objects that Godzilla can't. She can actually go a certain height up in the screen. She can't go all the way to the tippy top. She does take more damage, if I am not mistaken. She can also move more squares on the screen, as opposed to Godzilla, who can only move 2 at a time. Mothra can move 4, so let's go ahead and use her. We're going to move her towards Magera, I think is his name. The big armadillo-looking creature on the bottom there. This was one of those games that when I was concepting this series, I said I absolutely have to get this as one of the very first ones I want to look at because I have very fond memories of the game. Now, part of Rental Regrets, even though we're not going to do a review phase as we traditionally do on Nub's Collection, it will kind of just be boiled down to a couple of quick thoughts on whether or not the game is still fun, and the regrets will be just kind of a twofold thing. Either I regret spending so much money on it that, you know, I probably could have just outright bought the game back in the day, or I regret simply not owning it sooner. There are going to be some games in here that are going to be very non-traditional, you know, video game review episodes on any other channel. I can give away one of the early ones that we'll probably look at next whenever I do another episode of Rental Regrets. It's going to be on Jeopardy Junior. I have probably some unhealthy fascination with that game that normal human beings would be like, why didn't you just get the standard Jeopardy? Well, because it was made for kids, and I really thought I was a smart kid. And it turns out some of those questions were just way too tough for anyone. But thankfully, I think there will be some fun in that one, especially because of the way that the answer system in it works very strangely. But we'll talk about that when we do that episode. Let's focus on Godzilla, which I didn't even know had a subtitle back in the day. I always thought it was just Godzilla. I will say one of the things that I think is kind of a misstep on the part of the devs for this game is that they made a lot of audio, but unfortunately there are not a ton of audio channels available on the NES hardware, so what you'll end up having is when you start shooting a lot of objects and you have explosions, you know, sound effects popping off, it'll start muting out some of the channels or overriding some of the channels that the audio plays on the music audio. So instead of hearing the actual song as it's supposed to be playing, all you hear is boom, 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 and it mutes out some of the other audio. That can be very unpleasant after long plays of this game. The good news is they actually made it with a password system, so you don't necessarily have to play it all in one sitting. And that would be very difficult because I think the full playthrough would take 4 or 5 hours, probably. This probably wouldn't be the worst game in the world to do kind of like a drinking game out of, but I just wanted to do a quick look at it. This is probably one of those like bucket list games that it was like, if I had the money and the patience and the time to go back and buy games that I always wanted and never owned, this is going to be one of them, and well, now I own it, so. Now, I would question, since we're supposed to be on planet Earth, where is any of this supposed to be? What country am I supposed to be in that has eyeballs shooting, I don't know, squares at me, ninja stars, and a bunch of obelisks that have like robot heads that pivot? What plant on Earth shoots laser beams? I would really like an answer on that. And why does the moon look like a bowling ball? More importantly, if we're on Earth, why can I see Earth in the background? I'm sure it's a design concession. They were like, we gotta remind people that you're on Earth. Well, how is that going to work if you see Earth in the background? I don't know, it's a video game, shut up. Yoink. So one of the things that they did in this game to try to gate you from just using your powers nonstop is they give you a power meter that wears down as you use it, and then you gotta wait for it to recharge eventually. This boss, it turns out the easiest way to fight him is to just shoot him in the feet. If you get close enough, I don't think he can hit you at all. Like just right up in his face here. But one of the nice touches about this game is they gave a unique music track for every single boss monster that you fight during the game. And you do see a lot of these bosses repeat because the way that the game is set up to work, you fight 2 enemies in the very first area, Earth. Then you go to the next planet and you fight those 2 enemies again plus 1 new one. And you get a new one for each planet you go to until eventually Godzilla and Mothra are beating up 7 or 8 monsters in total. And it can be difficult because all the enemy monsters get a turn where they can try to approach you and attack. And if you had a really rough fight with one enemy, maybe you don't have the most health when you get engaged by the next enemy, so it can be really frustrating. And of course, if you're playing a Godzilla game, it only makes sense that you use his special attack, the atomic breath. I gotta tell you though, I used to love the Godzilla movies when I was a kid. I don't remember Godzilla having such quick punch attacks. I was also surprised to hear a while back when I was watching something where there were a group of people. It was a review show for the Godzilla movies that have just recently come out in the 2010s. 2014, I think, was the first one. They had mentioned that movie, while it had very little of Godzilla's actual presence on screen, it was one of the most appearance time, longest in appearance time movies for Godzilla of any movie that was ever made by Toho. Typically, during Godzilla movies, Godzilla is only on screen for 10, 11 minutes. Which almost doesn't seem like it could be accurate. You know, it's a Godzilla movie. Shouldn't most of the movie just be you seeing Godzilla beat up a big foam rubber monster? And the truth is, in most cases, they try to tie it back to humanity's effect or Godzilla's effect on humanity. See you later, Squid Boy. Megara thought that farther fighting here might be disadvantageous, so retreated to the next field. So this is one of the interesting mechanics of the game. Certain enemy characters can decide that they don't want to try to continue fighting, and they'll just leave the battlefield. It doesn't happen every single time. Quite often, the enemy will try to defeat you no matter what, and you'll get to the point where you just outright defeat them, and then you can advance to the last square, which is this big antenna dish in the bottom. The downside of that is, of course, that whenever they leave the field, you lose the ability to get that experience from shooting them. And the way that the game works is you gain levels based on the number of points that you score during the game, and every time you gain a level you gain a square of life and a square of power, so you can take more hits and obviously do more of your special attacks. And while I get the idea behind what they were doing, it almost looks like Mothra's special ability is to rip her own wings off and dump them on enemies. I think the original intent of that was she's supposed to be dumping poisonous powder on enemies or something like that. Now, they did have an interesting approach to the enemies that they chose for this particular game. They didn't just go with monsters that you recognize from Godzilla movies. I don't know if it was a licensing issue or they just felt that there was not enough recognizable monsters for Godzilla to beat up to make a full game, so they did populate it with some other non-Godzilla movie monsters from Japanese movies. So if you see something in here and you're like, I don't remember what movie Godzilla fought this monster in, it's probably because he didn't. It's not until much later in the game you'll see the ones that I think everyone remembers, which would be like Mechagodzilla and then eventually King Ghidorah. Unfortunately, no appearance by King Kong in this game. Not sure how that would work even. Now, the big detraction, I think, from the gameplay in this game, there is one thing that they put in this game that was just flat unfair. There was absolutely no reason to put this thing in there. There is one enemy ship that you'll see, I think, starting in the third world or so, that is a game breaker, basically. What it is it's a big horseshoe-shaped fireball with 2 engines on it. If it hits you, it will stun you, and for the entire time that ship is in contact with your body, it will continue to do damage. Mothra can avoid that ship very easily, it turns out, but Godzilla, if you don't time your jumping around it perfectly, it'll kill Godzilla in just a couple seconds. And unfortunately, the only way to get Godzilla back is to beat the area with the one surviving member of your team and make it to the next planet. When you get to the next planet, Godzilla's revived, or if Mothra dies, Mothra is revived. And then you can continue with both players on the next one. I would say that's probably the best way they could have kept your team together. If you lost one person, don't permanently make that monster disabled and unable to help you. It would have been nice if they found a way to give you extra lives in the game, but whatever. Whoa! Come on! The hitbox for certain objects in this game are very strange. That rocket cannon I was shooting at, the only way that you can actually damage it is you have to hit it right after it moves its position a little bit. I also thought it was very interesting that this game goes out of its way to tell you that the forces of Earth are trying to help you. I'm not sure who the forces of Earth are supposed to be in this situation. I always thought it was supposed to be those little yellow hamburger ships that are flying back and forth, but they're shooting at me! How is that helping? Are you trying to motivate me to fight harder? Because it's not working. You're just pissing me off. I just gained a level. So now I can choose Mothra. You do it on that square and it'll allow you to move to the next planet. So we're moving on. I'm going to try to get to the second planet before the end of the episode and maybe fight the bosses there as well. We'll see how it goes. Godzilla, turns out, I guess big surprise here, even though he's a bigger unit and can take more damage from enemies because he has a larger hitbox, he clears the screen way faster than Mothra does in pretty much every scenario. The only time I think Mothra actually has an advantage if you're trying to destroy everything in the way is when it comes to the areas where I fought like that big mushroom stalk. For some reason, Mothra's special ability does way more damage on it than Godzilla's does. I don't know, maybe the poison pollen that Mothra emits is also like a pesticide. Uh-oh! Come on. There we go. Now, in theory, if you're having a really hard time with this game and you wanted to grind up some experience, you can go to any area of the game if it has respawning enemies and just stay there and fight them. The longer you stay there, the more points you get. The more points you get, the more you level up. There we go. Almost out. Oh. Yeah, see, there is no dodging bullets for Godzilla. The only thing he can do is kind of tank it or punch the bullets. Or tail whip the bullets. I don't think this is the most immaculately designed game ever produced because, as you can see, the black texture for the eyes on Godzilla was actually painted transparent so you can see the background through his eyes. Not great. Not to mention his jump is just he levitates up in the air. That's just lazy design. Come on, guys. Compile, I expected more of you. I really enjoyed my time with Golbelius. This is a shock. Actually, I really enjoyed my time with this game too, so... I'll be honest, I have no idea if Compile did anything beyond the 80s, because I don't know if they even exist anymore. It's one of those things where I enjoyed the games that I do know they made so much that I would have a hard time believing I'm the only person who would have wanted more from this studio. And we're done. So now I can go to the next planet. Mars. Not 100% certain you go to every single planet in the solar system. I know the final one is you go to planet X. But they very clearly try to go out of the solar system as you progress. I think Mercury and Venus do appear. I'm not certain on that, but I think the way they design the story is you're supposed to be going out to Planet X, which just appeared on the edge of the solar system, which begs the question, how does humanity even know it's there? Pluto's a very long way away. We don't get information for that planet's presence very often. Turns out having things a very, very long distance away it makes it hard to get that kind of information. Certainly not quickly. But they did say this is the year 20XX, which I guess is meant to be a conceit to say that, now we have, faster than light engines and can travel to the edge of the solar system in relatively no time at all, barring the presence of giant space buggers like these things. Which again, all of these areas were on Earth, so how are they there? Come on, get out of here. There we go. Ooh, another mushroom. This may be the most confusing of all the enemies you fight in this game, even though it's not a traditional boss monster, it's more like a mini-boss. This was based on a movie that involved like a space fungus that was infecting people. I don't know if at any point during that movie you actually had any giant towers of mushroom. Oh, I'm gonna fight the squid with Mothra this time. I guess I would be remiss if I didn't point out the reason why we're doing an episode of Rental Regrets this particular time. It's twofold. One, I'm trying to get to the end of my Bloodborne lore play, which if you've been following along week to week as it's being produced, we're into I guess as of time of publishing this episode, 13 episodes that are on the site, and I think I have 17 or 16 recorded up to this point. So it's getting there, but I would like to wrap it up. Secondly, this is the launch week of the next From Software game, Elden Ring, I can speak. And I'm very much looking forward to playing that, which may cut into some of the time that I have for editing and recording videos for the channel. So just wanted to give myself kind of a pad week, you know, slow things down a little bit. I do hope you guys enjoy the standard episodes, because I do put a lot of work into those. As ridiculous as that sounds, this is a labor of love. I don't make any money on this channel or anything like that, but it is a lot of fun to put together those standard episodes with all the weird visual gags and text that I throw into the videos. Ooh, I gained a level. I guess just walking into this area gave it to me. Come on, get out of the way. Get out of the way. So his hitbox is at the top of the mushroom. There we go. And now I got my full life box. That was strange. Alright, so I'm gonna go after Magera since we didn't really beat him last time. I think I can do it this time. It'd be a bummer if we don't get to see that evil horseshoe ship at least at some point during this episode, so you can get a taste of how awful the game could be. Just gonna tail whip you, guy. Yeah, take it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. He's fighting back. Give him a taste of the breath! Yeah, Godzilla wrecks. There's few situations where Godzilla cannot defeat an enemy in one run. That atomic breath is lethal. Look at that. One turn. Would it have been nice if they had had some kind of background when you're fighting the monsters? Absolutely. Does it matter in the long run? Absolutely not. Alright, let's go fight Godzilla. I do remember a movie involving Godzilla at some point in the past, and I don't know if it was a Godzilla movie or just a big monster movie. Kind of diving into my history with Godzilla, I think I used to have a toy of Godzilla. It wasn't like a licensed toy as far as I know. I think it was just a cheap knockoff. That Godzilla figure was hands down my favorite toy as a kid. That was the toy whenever I had any other action figures they had to work with or fight against. It was, I'd say about 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. Fairly big, hard plastic. Limbs turned, but they weren't the most articulate of limbs. The leg had 1 point of articulation. It was just at the hip. The arms, 1 point of articulation at the shoulders, and I think the tail turned. Still my favorite toy. Okay, so I should fight this one with Godzilla as well. This is not going well. Certain monsters are better fought with other characters. Magera was obviously more tuned for Mothra's fighting ability. Alright, let's see if we can't get Godzilla in the mix here. Fight the enemy, yes. Fight Godzilla. And then we'll take the other one on with Mothra. which I think is another Mothra-specific fight. Burn them down! Cool thing about this area is those, whatever they are, yellow booger monsters all drop this item that gives you your power back when you use it. Uh-oh. Yeah, the enemy can pin you. The good news is, even though it can pin you, you never actually lose any health when that pin action happens. Some punches until I can use my power again. You're screwed. See ya! Ooh, I got 2 health boxes for that. He's fighting me? Oh, you made a bad mistake, kid. The tail whip is not the fastest attack, but it has the most range and it does the most damage when it hits. Now, I don't recall ever seeing Godzilla get down on his haunches. I keep saying his, but it may be a female. Down on his or her haunches and just spinning in a circle to whip tail at enemies. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I don't remember it happening. I'm gonna let the time expire. If you don't beat the enemy, eventually the clock runs out so that Mothra can get in on the action. Yes. Fight Varen. It's the big ship! So there are certain levels that rarely appear. This is one of them, where these big ships that are always seen in the background flying overhead, shooting missiles and bombs at you. You get a chance to get a little bit of revenge and fight them where they can get hit. Oh, that's right. I forgot. This is the main target right here. Just drop some powder on that. That might be done. Just go after the next part, I guess. Now, the weird thing about the way this game works is they had to make it so that Mothra could take damage even if she's not actively being hit by objects. So when you shoot bullets with your I-beams, you take damage. That is the dumbest thing they could have done in this game, but they had to make it so that there was a threat to Mothra and that she couldn't just fly over all the damage in the game. And this is why Varen is more easily beaten with Mothra. No effort. None whatsoever. Alright, so, where's the exit? Oof, long way. I don't know if we're gonna see the horseshoe monster ship, whatever it is, before we leave. And I'm just gonna beeline it in case we do get a chance to see it. I think it's the third world where we actually start seeing it. Get out of here. I've read that the dragon that keeps appearing out of those mounds... There it is! Oh, avoid contact with that thing at all costs. If it hits you, it's basically the end. It'll ping you, it'll do constant damage that's unavoidable, and you will probably die. And unfortunately, if it appears once in the level, it will respawn in every couple of seconds until you leave the level. So I really need to get out of here quickly, because he's going to be back. That is nightmare fuel. There are a few things in video games that are more terrifying than that goddamn horseshoe. I guess if you're into Minecraft, the creepers are probably equivalently terrifying. I will say, being a Nintendo game, this game suffers from one of the recurring issues with a lot of games that were ambitious with the amount of stuff they wanted to put on screen at once. If there's too many moving objects, too many sprites, eventually stuff will just start disappearing, and that includes your special ability. If there's too many ships or bullets on screen, Mothra's poison powder will stop spawning when you press the attack button, which kind of sucks, because it means you're not getting the full benefit of the attack that you're trying to use. Come on. Get out of here. I know that horseshoe is looking for me. It smells my blood. Actually, I think we left the screen it spawned on, so hopefully I won't see it again. And the later levels of this game, like when you get to Pluto and Planet X, those things are in every single level. Ah, there it is. There is no killing that ship. That's the other thing. You cannot kill it. It is invulnerable, so the only way to get around it is just avoid it altogether. In fact, I may just let Godzilla eat it so that I can show you what it's like. Owie! Now, far be it for me to judge the design aesthetics of ships that travel through space, but what purpose does a giant drill serve for a space-bound ship? Are they running into planets and burrowing into them just to make sure that the ship won't fall back out into space somehow? Pretty sure gravity does the work there. There it is again. Alright, yeah. With Mothra, if you get up high and then kind of drop down low, it'll go off screen and then despawn. Godzilla does not have the luxury of doing anything that exotic to get rid of it. That's one of those things where I imagine the first time people see that thing get hit by it, they go, this game's broken, I can't beat it, and then just give up on the game. Which is a shame, because it is a lot of fun, and that is an avoidable attack, as hard as it is to believe. Just requires a little diligence on your part. In Godzilla's case, it just requires you to understand where the enemy is when it spawns, and manipulating its movements so that you can get underneath it or over top of it. Missed on all of those. There we go. There we go. Almost there. No. I'll just fly. Fly, fly, fly. Problem is, if you do try to just run through the areas, even as Mothra, you're going to take a ton of damage, and if you're not destroying objects, you're not getting health kits, and if you're not getting health kits, you're going to die. There he is again. Whoa! Almost. I like that the enemy force's big plan to stop me is to just put a couple of blocks in front of me. This'll get him. Thank you. Now, they don't say what's in those health kits. I like to imagine that it's just a big pile of, like, nuclear waste. Like, byproduct from some kind of working nuclear tower. I don't know that for certain, but I'm pretty sure that's what Godzilla feeds on, so. Mothra, who knows, maybe it's a big pile of leaves. I don't know what moths actually eat. Oh, no, you don't. Stupid Phoenix. Here he is. Now let's see what happens when I get hit. Look at that damage! That is not fair. if you're just trying to get to a boss in one of these areas and you get pinned by accident by one of those things, ends your run, man. That's just not fair. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're at the 40-minute mark, so I think that's a good look at it. I'll just offer some closing remarks on the game instead of doing a full review like I normally would. I do think the music gets a little bit grating since it's one track that you hear on every single planet until you move to the next planet, and then usually they do give you a new song to listen to. Would have been nice if maybe they had different tracks for the different biomes, but Compile is actually one of the better studios when it comes to adding musical variety to their games. So it's a little bit shocking that even though there's a unique track for each boss and a unique track for each planet, they didn't find a way to put unique tracks in for each biome. The character models are very good. Not only the boss monsters, but the main characters. They're very large, which is always a nice touch. I think Nintendo models, at least on the early days of the system's lifespan, character models tended to be on the small side so that they could put more sprites on the screen. They made them very large in this game, and that is obviously... It has its pros and cons. The detail on the models is obviously much higher because of the larger models, but also because they take up so much space. The sprites tend to clip and have the shuttery effect where, you know, they kind of disappear. But I think I would have preferred them this way than having smaller character models on screen. It's Godzilla. You want a big monster. That horseshoe, hot death. I don't know why they put it in the game. I think it breaks the game and it doesn't make it terribly fun if you manage to get pinned by it and killed. The boss fights can be a little bit cheesy if you use the wrong character, and it's not always obvious which of your two people or monsters that you should fight against one of their monsters. Sometimes you just have to learn by trial and error. Have one go in there, get its ass kicked, back out, try with the other monster, and hopefully you get better results the next time. Probably better to write down, if you play it once, which ones are better against which monsters and try to line it up so that you face them with the favorable lineup. But yeah, if I were to give this a regret, I would say I regret that I never bought this game. I really do enjoy this game. It does have some problems, and the music can be a little bit grating, but I genuinely feel that my money would have been better spent just outright buying this game, because every time I've played it in the past, and you know, through means that are less than legal, cough, cough, I have enjoyed playing the game, and that includes today. This was a lot of fun. All right, I think that's going to do it for this first episode of Rental Regrets. I can't even say the name. Rental Regrets. These won't be super frequent. It's probably just going to be kind of a tailored selection of games that I really want to take a second look at. In some cases, the regret is going to be that I should never have wasted as much money as I did on the game. This is one of those instances where I genuinely wish I just had outright bought the game or asked for it for my birthday. I will say that of the games that I have purchased online thus far, this has been the most expensive, which means it's probably not that common a game to find. The rarity usually drives the price up, and this was not the cheapest game that I bought, but it was a lot of fun looking at it again today. So, as always, we do appreciate all of you watching, and I will see you next time.